Yes, good morning. Good morning, everyone. We are so glad you're here.
We are very glad. Kelly, do you want to say, okay, she's a professor at Volunteer State Community College in Gallatin, Tennessee, and she will introduce me.
Yes, and this is Dr. Diana Ruggiero, who is a Spanish professor at the University of Memphis in Memphis, Tennessee. So we are both coming to you from Tennessee, but other parts of the state. I'm in Middle Tennessee, and Diana is in West Tennessee, um, Elvis land.
Yes, yes.
We do have a little Padlet activity to get us started, getting to know each other. We are going to be talking about language matters and inclusion today. So we wanted to start with an exercise, just kind of connecting over some of our experiences with language. So we invite you to participate if you're comfortable. And this is part of an activity that we do with students in my OER class, which I'll share a little bit more about later. But as far as this conversation goes, it's very timely. Before Diana and I even were finished really creating our presentation, we just had multiple messages flooding our inboxes at work, which I'm sure you all have too. Every session, every professional development that I'm getting into my inbox these days seems to be focused on AI. And we're all having big conversations, aren't we, at our various colleges and universities about what this means. I'm an English professor. This is my 20th year, full-time tenure track in the higher education system in Tennessee. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I do teach mostly freshman classes because I'm a community college professor. And the state of Tennessee also has co-requisite remediation. So for years, I've also been the coordinator for our learning support writing class, which is the skills class we pair with the college level composition. So we want to predicate our presentation today just on saying that this is such a big topic, and we know that we're only going to be scratching the surface. And we understand too just the very political nature of language and the problematic history of the English language in particular, which we could do a whole separate presentation on. But we wanted to just mention that we are going to be focusing on language issues within the U.S. education system, American academic English specifically, and English for professional purposes here in North America. But we wanted to just clarify that because we realize that English is such a global language and has had such an impact and has been part of a lot of, obviously problematic issues with the eradication of other languages, with colonization and other issues that are in the background of this discussion today. But just a couple of weeks ago, there was a summit in Washington, and we were reading a little bit about this, but I thought it was very helpful because it does just put us right into the moment of the national conversation about AI. Some of the takeaways from the briefing recently that we wanted to share with our students as a way of helping them to understand the issues of AI and how it might impact their lives and their communities is that mortgage lending algorithms have been more likely to deny home loans to people of color than to white people. And we know that this is because AI is based on human programming. It's based on scanning the language patterns and predictive algorithms in particular, specifically used for this. So we know that redlining and some of those issues that have been a problem historically are continuing. They're being furthered into our current situation with AI, especially when there is a lack of oversight. And that's something that has come up in the talk about regulations. We also know it's a problem in HR with hiring, as well as with, they did not mention this in their bullets from the briefing, but we know with college admissions, it's an issue as well. And that automatic systems used in hospitals have been repeatedly understated in the needs of Black patients, that it's also exacerbated healthcare disparities in other ways. It's also affected the systems in our judicial courts and in incarceration problems. So we know that there are very wide-ranging effects that AI and the use of AI have on our communities. And part of what we want to do as educators, of course, is to engage students and to raise their critical consciousness, as our title mentions, based on the teachings of Paulo Freire, specifically with language and empowering students to question the power structures and the way that language and their own communication can remake the world in better ways. So this was one of the takeaways that we thought was really powerful from the summit. It's humans, sorry, my screens. It's humans who choose how to build AI systems, and therefore humans who can choose how to eliminate racial biases in the construction. So we know that now more than ever, it's really important that we interrogate language, and that as we're teaching language, that we make sure that students are aware, and as they are preparing for their futures, this is such an important part of the learning outcomes of our courses across the curriculum. So we wanted to also present some information from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And I use this specifically. We have to be cautious in the state of Tennessee because of the political climate. As we are having these discussions, that we are careful to help students to see the relevance within their college and career track as we talk about some of these very loaded language issues. And that is something that the NACE does very well. It's something I use in my classrooms, even in my literature classrooms, because the learning outcomes overlap so well with these career readiness skills. It also gives students the opportunity to really be empowered to articulate the skills that they're building, translating from the learning outcomes and the language that we use in our syllabi and other materials into information and awareness that they can then take out into the work world. But we wanted to just show how these overlap with the issue of critical consciousness and the problematic relationships between languages and power. And I wanted to focus first briefly on communication, because that's what Diana and I both teach in different ways, but specifically these highlighted issues, noting cultural differences and varied individual communication, that it's important as we consider rhetorical situations that students learn how to respond and learn how to question. And then also questioning specific information, including AI. Another is critical thinking, of course, which goes right along with critical consciousness, being able to use information to solve problems. So we're adding this to their general information literacy that we already have built into our curriculums, but gathering and analyzing information from diverse sources and individuals, which is so important, and understanding how the more perspectives and voices we have at the table, the better we are at problem solving. Also being able to interpret data and be aware of personal biases, that is so important. And then communicating those things to people, stakeholders with diverse perspectives and lived experiences. And then finally, NACE has this really wonderful outcome for diversity and inclusion. And really, I didn't highlight these because every single one of them are relevant to the discussion today. So having these developed by both universities, colleges, and employers is a great way to explain to students why this is important. Even if they do not come from marginalized communities, they are going to be working with people in our global economy and our global community. They're going to be working with people different from themselves, and it's very important both for democratic reasons, but also for their own career goals, that they learn these skills and that they raise their own critical consciousness as they are learning about communication and building those skills that they need to enter into the workplace. So the OER course that I created at my college is for the learning support class that goes along with our English composition course here at Volunteer State Community College. And the specific lesson that I want to share with you today is called Myths About Language, and it is a rhetorical analysis lesson plan where we do invite students to begin some of these conversations about AI. And we do have previous information about from the course. For instance, we include a short lesson on the history of the English language, and we get into some of those kind of multicultural and global perspectives on English prior to this lesson. So we do raise those issues with students prior. But this module in particular seeks to teach students rhetoric and rhetorical appeal through resources that challenge prejudices in language, and especially important, create a sense of pride in linguistic diversity by exploring the questions of how authors use rhetoric to accomplish their purpose, and how judgments about language are social as opposed to linguistic. And then we are also able to use this to really get students thinking about their own experiences with language, which we want to take some time to circle back to our Padlet and take a look at what you've had to say about your experiences. So I'm going to pull that up. And Diana, if you want to.
Yes, it's been very active. We love it. So you want to share this? You want me to share the Padlet? I can do
Yes.
that. Here you go. Share sound. We have about 3 posts, and um, a person says, based on looks, people think I speak Arabic based on my looks. And then after times I am asked, where are you when I speak in Spanish? After many years teaching, my accent has changed in public. So when they find out I'm Puerto Rican, I get comments such as, you're too educated, polite, white to be Puerto Rican. Many do think that is a compliment. And former supervisor spoke with a heavy accent and was frequently asked, do you speak English? By callers. And then a colleague I know is Iranian American, and a former boss of her criticized her accent and asked her to attend Toastmasters training so she could sound more professional.
Mm,
Yes. Thank you so much for posting those.
thank you. I've had students share very similar experiences, and I don't know how many of you use Padlet in the classroom. It's something that I learned when we were in the pandemic days as a way to engage students in the online environment. But I really love using it in class, especially because students can post anonymously, which with a topic like this, they are making themselves vulnerable. It's a way for us to share some experiences without putting people on the spot. So it can be a good way to use Padlet. And also just to do some norming around the negative experiences and fears that students have, which we know is important for belonging, that they are able to see that they're not alone in their experiences, and to be able to confront some of the causes of those negative experiences as we build a safe space for learning in the classroom.
We do have a new posting here. I want to make sure I acknowledge it. Is rising scholars and I see AI and critical writing and communication skills becoming a hotter and hotter topic when I work with learning communities. For example, in our college, recent work with recently incarcerated rising scholars, and there's a link for everybody to go to read more about it.
Thank you so much. And at this time too, I would like to go ahead and invite you to add to, we have a shared file that we have created for you to post some ideas that you would like to share as a takeaway with the group. And we've shared some bibliographic resources on the file as well. So Diana, if you could share the link to our document there. People are welcome to continue the conversation. Please put that link about incarceration on the file, because I know that is a place where we are seeing a lot of problems with AI affecting sentencing, and it's really affects a lot of our communities in very negative ways. I'm going to go back into my share screen now. Okay. So the lesson in my OER course invites students first to just take a more global perspective on language, and we show them some primary differences among major international English dialects in a way to kind of disrupt this idea of our very ethnocentric American academic English tunnel vision that we tend to have, and showing them that English is an international language, and it goes back to the rhetorical situation. What is considered effective rhetorically depends on your audience and your context. It does not depend on one specific set of rules, which can sometimes be very arbitrary as well. So we like to really talk about that. And then we have a couple of resources which the students have helped us to collect. And this is how our course also falls into the OEP, Open Educational Practices, of having students as contributors to the course. And this is something that we are excited to continue as we adapt and grow the OER in future semesters, to have more and more of those voices of our students present in the materials. But we also include Yale's Grammatical Diversity Project, which has an excellent lengthy resource studying different variations of English and where they are located. And that shows us some surprising similarities between communities as well, which can do some community building as we look at ways that people are stereotyped or discriminated against based on language, dangerous stereotypes, harmful stereotypes. And two that have been very interesting are the West Virginia Dialect Project and the Yale Project. And we use these as a starting point about linguistic bias and how that may affect writing in the United States. Then we watch a TED Talk with the students, embracing multilingualism and eradicating linguistic bias. And we use the Aristotelian rhetorical strategies as part of this discussion, ethos, pathos, and logos, and help students to think critically about the strategies that speakers use in order to effectively persuade a particular audience. But this puts us in a great position to look at a variety of Englishes that work in different contexts with different audiences and purposes. So the Yale Grammatical Diversity Project, which you'll see the link on the resources that we provided, has some really great takeaways that we like to use as foundational learning, especially in the developmental education population, which is those students often have been marginalized and stereotyped by language in very harmful ways. And we continue to work as professionals to remove those barriers and to center our classrooms on students and their learning. But I love this. Standard English does not refer to the most commonly spoken form of English or to the best or most correct kind, that actually linguistically there isn't a correct. It depends on the rhetorical situation that the speaker is in and the language and the context. So looking at that, also understanding the power and the relationships of mainstream American English, that these are the languages of power. The standard in any culture of language is that language of power, the one that's taught in school, that's privileged, that is taught, it's used in the workplace, as well as in important, serious national media and by politicians. So recognizing how exclusionary practices have prevented participation in the power culture by using language as a gatekeeper. Also from the project, understanding that there is no correlation between someone's intelligence and the dialect they speak or the accent that they have. This is a really big one for my students in particular, because going through a traditional education system, especially as community college students, they have been told, most of them, throughout their educational experience, that they were less capable because of their distance from standard academic English. And that's how they're placed often in these classes. So it's very important that they understand their own abilities. and feel empowered to question those placement tools and what has caused that discrimination in their histories. So also looking at many dialects and how the stigmas work to that it's not about the language as much as it's about who is speaking the language. So we need to really question those. Another resource that we use in this lesson is an article from Slate Magazine about the film I'm Sorry to Bother You, which explores racial bias and accents. It's a really funny, kind of also very irreverent movie, but students respond very well to it. And then we have a couple of other sources that we have added and we are continuing to add to as our students bring more resources to the table. Just last week, I had students very interested in talking about international students and immigrant students' experiences. So we are going to continue to add to our resources as we grow the lesson with OEP in mind. We then help students to understand essay structure and to utilize ChatGPT to actually generate a paper. And this is after they have analyzed the TED Talk themselves. So they have a comparison from a human analysis to an AI analysis, and they're able to critique the differences between the two in learning what ChatGPT can do and how important it is that we ask critical questions, but also the limitations, especially when it comes to analyzing human communication. So those are some of the ways that we have been using this in a developmental studies class that we're very excited about the potential and the possibilities. It is a new course and a new lesson, so we have a lot to learn, and I'm excited to discuss your feedback as we wrap up our session today and continue the conversation, hopefully, on our shared file. I'm going to turn the floor over to Diana now to talk about how she is using AI in her medical translation class.
Thank you so much. And that was wonderful, Kelly. And as we continue to talk, please engage in the chat, continue adding to the Padlet. We want you to be very engaged. And of course, we want to say good morning to everybody. This is the most important part. We want to know who is on the other side. This is not just about us talking. But I want to say that having an accent is one of the reasons why AIs and Google Translate will not just be on their own. We're here to never leave. Language teachers will always have a job because AIs or Google Translate are not enough on their own. And having an accent means that you speak more than one language, and that should be a sign of pride, not of prejudice, and talking about the book. And what I want to say real quick is, in case you're not familiar with Google Translate versus AI, AI can translate. If you go to ChatGPT and ask to translate something, it might do it for you, it will, but it's still doing that algorithm of prediction of the next word, versus Google Translate has a more complete list of languages. It goes into more languages and it's a more dedicated tool. So you can think of Google Translate as a dedicated AI for translating, versus an AI is just there to do more the predicted language. So if you're gonna translate something, use Google Translate. And then next slide, we'll go to the next one. Kelly, I think you got the power on this one because yes. So I love this quote: "World travel worlds, and translators do the driving." So it is very important that, because I work with medical interpreting, you'll see the limitations of the technology. There is a limitation, right? So translators and interpreters are indeed crucial. We go to the next. Yes. So when you see this lady, I want to see in the chat, what do you think? Do you approach her and say, "Congratulations"? What do you think she's going on? Like, what's going on with this lady? Just type in the chat. Feel free to whatever comes to your mind. Okay, go ahead. I want to see the chat going like. Say nothing. So of course, say nothing. Like, even if you think, right, keep going, keep going. Yes, and she's praying. Yeah, because some people go, "Congratulations," said, no, not to say it. All right, keep going, keep going. So Elizabeth says, "Say nothing." Everybody's sleeping. You lied to me? You say you're drinking coffee? Come on, you're not drinking coffee if you're not typing in the chat right now. You should be very engaged. Oh, my anxiety could never. Right, right. Yeah. But I mean, you see this lady. She's in the subway, right in front of you. And then Chris says, "Do not say congratulations. Don't assume she's pregnant. Yes, are celebrating being pregnant. Yes, you don't assume. But hey, Chris, you thought she was pregnant." And then Assam says, "Say hello." There you go. You thank you, Assam. You didn't just ignore this lady. You say something, Kristen. Ah, hi, how you doing? Yes, yes, yes. And then License says, "Okay, I think I made my point." Okay, so let's go to the next slide. I agree. I should say so. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, so in 2023, and this is a meme. People still can stop laughing where Paris Hilton was kissing a woman's belly and thinking this lady was pregnant, but she wasn't. She was just on her knees trying to be nice and assuming that she was pregnant. No, you can never assume a person is pregnant, even if they have a belly. It could be another condition. You never. I know. There's some horror faces, but I hope this wake you up. That's a straight. Yeah, she went to this lady and kissed her belly unsolicited. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Perfect. So this is very important. So when you translate, and most doctors measure, because this is a very important thing. We measure pregnancies in United States in weeks. In Latin America, we measure in month. So when you ask a person, say the person disclose they're pregnant, they say, "Oh, hi, yeah, I'm expecting." They already say good morning to you. They're already saying, "I'm expecting." And you say, "How far along are you?" In Spanish, we say 3 meses, 2 meses, un mes. In English, you'll say, "I am 4 weeks, 3 weeks." For us, it's very, very difficult to understand because we don't measure pregnancies in that. So a lot of the times when I'm interpreting in a medical situation, the doctors, the provider assumes the person is ignorant. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't even know how far along they're. It's not that. It's the way we measure in different cultures is different. So this will now be taken care of by AI or by Google Translate. Let's go to the next one. So one of the exercise I do, thank you so much. I go and I ask them to use Google Translate and ChatGPT, and I said, okay, so you have a client that is a Latinx woman who's pregnant. The pregnancy is going well. At 12 weeks, the fetus shows progress in growth. However, we recommend you increase your weight with protein by 10 pounds. Your weight now is 105 pounds, and your goal should be 115 pounds. So now when we translate this, either Google Translate and ChatGPT will give you the exact literal translation. They're not going to go into month for you. They're not going to say, "Oh, but in Latin America, people measure in month." They're going to just translate that. They're going to translate exactly that, pounds. But you know that we in Latin America, as a cultural broker that you are as an interpreter, you have to move those weeks to months and then pounds to, yes, you thought it right, kilos. So that is why you have to rest assured, unless there's a cultural ambassador on the data, pre-data entry on the AI, they will never replace cultural knowledge, right? So let's go to the next. Thank you. And yes. So this is what they have to do. The translation should be written in Spanish. They first translate the sentence the best of their ability. Then they use Google Translate. They focus on one tool at a time. And then they have to tell me, were the two translations the same? The ones that you wrote and the one that you got with the AI or Google Translate. How can your skills improve? And there should be two total sentences. So we get to discuss the use of the AI or Google Translate, and then consider how many people measure. So this is what I created with the OER, and then again, you're gonna get the links to all of this. So after teaching with a textbook that didn't have a lot of interactions, we created this medical interpreting book as a complete open guide. I use this in my medical translation classes. It's a complete textbook. And I got a grant, and so we created the one part that was missing in the textbook that I used before was videos. Let's go next. So one thing I want to say before I show you one of the sample videos is that we had the opportunity to discuss how errors are part of learning, and that also the AI and the tools are not a replacement for humans, and they also make mistakes. You know very well they make up stuff, they make up hallucination stuff that is not true, and you have to make sure you check on this. But it's an open discussion. This is not happening outside the classroom, it's happening in the classroom. And then we go to the next one. Just to give you some context, I want you to focus on the word once, and I'm gonna type it on the chat. So once in English is one time, and in Spanish is 11, is the number 11. It's spelled the exact same way, all right? So let's push play on that one. All right, I think I have it on my end.
All right, I'm going to need you to take this once a day. Toma eso una vez al día.
Mira, pero es que aquí dice 11.
Diane, can you turn off the video? We can't hear the sound. So when you share your Zoom screen, make sure you check share audio in the pop-up window.
All right, I'm going to need you to take this once a day. Toma eso una vez al día.
Mira, pero es que aquí dice 11.
It says 11 times a day. No, not at all. It's once, one time. No, para nada. Dice una vez al día. Si puedo clarificar, 11 en español es el número 11, pero once, O-N-C-E, es once, una vez al día en inglés. In Spanish, O-N-C-E spells once, which is 11. Oh my goodness. In English, it's once. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you got that. Ay, estoy tan alegre que te diste cuenta de eso.
Señorita, es que igual no me las puedo tomar porque hoy es miércoles de ceniza y yo soy católico, apostólico y romano y no me lo permiten.
I still can't eat it because it's Ash Wednesday, so.
So that's the translation as is. This error happened for real in translation, and that cannot be detected that easily by non-humans. So I'm gonna end there. We will love to hear from you questions, and I will pass the word to Kelly. Thank you so much for being here today. I want to leave the last moments. We have like about 8 minutes left, and to hear what your questions are. And I'm going to check the chat while Kelly.
Yes. And I wanted to add we talked about language and bias, but we didn't get into the issue of data ownership, which is another really big concern with AI and with democracy and empowering language users around the world as people are contributing, sometimes without even knowing it, to AI. So there's some interesting articles about that. One of those is listed on our shared file there with a project, a storytelling project, international storytelling project And it raises the issue of compensation and privacy. So there's so many things that we can talk about with information literacy, democracy, and AI as we continue to understand this new and evolving technology.
Yeah, we'd love to see if you have any questions that you'd like to address. And let me see the chat. And says, L says, AI still needs improvement in transliterations, idioms, culture norms. Sometimes that we use every day. The concept of time is structured and written different across languages, cultures, and regions. For example, past participles. Well, absolutely. And the mistranslations that I see, the word 50 Shades, the book 50 Shades of Grey, well, somebody was keeping talking about sunglasses. And, instead of 50 Shades of Grey, 50 sunglasses. And I was like, where did they get that? Well, they used the machine and then they translated shades as sunglasses. And I said, oh, okay. This is not even shadow, shade, shadow. It went to the slang. And so they try, they try, but they still fail, And then I have a discussion with them, what are you trying to say here? And again, we also have to talk about the implications of using AI, and we're not saying use them. We're saying if you're going to use them, this is what the problems that they might arise. We might as well have your original work. Of course, we don't encourage the use. I never encourage the use of Google Translate or AI. But the honest truth, especially in languages, that is what they're going to go to. They're going to go and use them behind your back, whether you like it or not. And instead of having the attitude, this is what I always invite teachers to do. Instead of having this reprehension, attitude or punishment, we need to understand why they are using them and go with the change of assessment, evolving with the assessment adaptation to the new reality that we're having. And it's like somebody who's telling me, we compare this to driving Teslas. Are you going to punish somebody for using autopilot? They have the technology available. It's not fair. I have to drive my car with, regular gas. And then somebody's just doing autopilot and putting makeup on. Well, they have the available technology. Privilege, but it's a technology. So it's just that thinking. What do you think, Kelly?
Yes, I agree. And I know we're just embarking really on this whole adventure with AI and education and language. So I think OER puts us in a very unique and great position to continue to adapt and remix resources and share resources. We have these wonderful platforms now to do that. And if you check out our share file, there are actually some crowdsourced university materials there too. So if you're wanting to take a look and see, we have 4 Cs and some other Writing Across the Curriculum Clearinghouse, some other language-specific groups that have really started to pull resources and are encouraging people to not only add information to the bibliographies, but also to actually go in and make comments on things like recommendations for syllabus policies. We're just all still learning how to do this and how to teach students to think critically and to question, right? So thank you so much for being with us this morning. We are at time, but we hope you'll continue to add to our share file, take those resources. We want to learn from you too, but we hope you have a great rest of your conference day. Thank you.
Thank you.